Hey, what is up everybody? This is Damron. We're playing Elder Scrolls Online. In this video, we're playing one of the two new dungeons that just came out in the Waking Flame DLC. This particular dungeon is Red Petal Bastion. As always, I'm going to cover the veteran dungeon in its entirety. We're not going to be doing hard mode in this video. We're going to cover the boss mechanics of the veteran difficulty of this dungeon. We'll try to get all the hard mode done later, but in this one I'm going to show you all the bosses, show you the mechanics. I'm also going to show you how to unlock the secret bosses in this mission that can give you some extra perks while you're playing through it, and show you how to unlock those runes. As always, I'll keep this as a full playthrough. We will kind of fast forward through the trash mobs. I'll point out anything important as we go, but for main part we're going to be focusing on boss mechanics. Everything will be timestamped, including the rune locations if you're just specifically coming for the ways to find these secret bosses. So if there's any particular boss you're looking for, or if you're just looking for some of the runes, those will be timestamped. So let's go ahead and get this off. We're going to blast through kind of these first trash mobs in this area. The only kind of mob you really need to pay attention to throughout this arena are the Realm Shapers, and then later the Watchers. Anytime you come up to a Silver Rose Realm Shaper, be sure you take those guys as first. They can heal surrounding enemies, and also they can hit pretty hard, so the tank definitely wants to grab those. All right, so once we've cleared out this kind of first outdoor courtyard area, now we can activate our first set of runes in order to get to these secret bosses in this mission. The first one is going to be in the northeastern corner out here, and what you're going to see is this activation rune that's blue on the ground. And there's going to be 3 of them, so 3 different players need to stand on these at the same time. The second one, as you kind of go all the way up the way you're supposed to go, before you kind of go through the door to the main courtyard in the boss fight, if you look to the right, you're going to see this tower. Go to the top of that tower, and you're going to find the second rune that you need to activate. So now let's head back out into the main area here, and as we progress, now we're going back as if we're going backwards now. But before you go through this archway, if you see this house right here on the right, actually going this way, this is a house that you can actually enter for the third rune right here on the front of these bunk beds. Once all 3 are activated, you'll know they're all activated because a beam of light is going to be coming off of those crystal shards, and the light is actually pointing in the direction where a portal is going to spawn. And now we can take this portal to Goroseli. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but essentially, it's a area of oblivion that you're going to go into to fight these secret bosses. And all of the secret bosses are going to start off the same. You're going to kind of activate a crystal in the center of this platform, and you're going to fight again a bunch of just ad-like enemies. In here, you don't need to know anything special about the ads. Again, they're just ads. This is a good opportunity, as always I've mentioned in a lot of my guides. If you notice, my AoE indicators are bright pink. I highly recommend you change them from the base color, which is red. It's a little harder to see, and especially when you're playing veteran content. If you change it to something bright that's really noticeable, it's going to help you stay out of those AoEs in these more difficult fights. But once you kind of blast through enough of those ads and that crystal gets charged, eventually the quote boss is going to spawn in here, which is just like a Wraith of Crows, almost a smaller version of the world boss in Clockwork City. Basically, it's very easy. Basically, as long as the tank just kind of holds on to its heavy attacks, you're not going to have much to worry about. He will spawn this kind of moving AoE that will do a lot of damage if you stand in it, but again, it's really easy to stay out of, and it eventually will dissipate. He'll launch some also kind of these like purple balls at people, but you'll see like a pink indicator on that. This is a very simple fight. It's just a glorified ad, really. This is not challenging. So essentially, let's clean him up, and then I'll show you the ability you get for killing him. So once you kill the Wraith of Crows, you're going to acquire the Crystal Animus Agate. I don't know if I'm saying that right either, but essentially it's going to give you max magicka and max stamina, by 10%. But the cool thing about it is that your healers are going to get this ability, or really anybody that heals a damaged ally will summon a spirit, and that spirit will attack the closest enemy within 30 minutes, within 30 meters. And it's pretty cool because you can have up to 3 of those spirits active at once. So if you have a good healer that's essentially healing your team, you're going to have 3 spirits helping you throughout this fight. That's a pretty cool ability. So once you finish that, we have finished this kind of first area, and we're going to go into the courtyard, and now we're going to fight our first real boss of this level. Now, just like the prior DLC, there are hard modes of every single boss in the dungeon, and it's much harder. There's not actually many different mechanics for this one. He just gets more health and more damage. But in this video, we're going to cover the normal veteran difficulty of these bosses. I'll try to cover all the hard modes in a later video. So Rogerain the Sly, he's basically gone crazy from Sheograth, and I'll touch a little bit on the lore of this dungeon here shortly, but this really isn't that bad of a fight. It's kind of a fun fight, actually. He does a lot of crazy things, like turning you into a goat. But let's go over his mechanics. First thing, tank, just kind of hold him away from everybody. You can see he's kind of holding him facing the stairwell. That just allows you to kind of be to the side and be behind him if you're DPS or the healer. So let's go over all of his attacks briefly. So first off, that was his heavy attack, and that launches those 3 kind of lightning balls in all directions. So he'll twirl his staff around and kind of do that. But as long as the tank's holding him, you don't need to worry too much about that. One thing that he will do is he'll put Unspeakable Void on the ground, which is this AoE that you can see right there near the stairs. That stays there for a while, and if you stand in that, that will actually do considerable damage to you. So you definitely want to stay out of that. So again, there's his heavy attack, and now he's going to put Unspeakable Void on the ground. The other thing that Unspeakable Void does is it launches Belly Busters out, which is essentially 8 tiny little AoEs that come out of the Unspeakable Void, and they kind of go in a radial direction. They're not going to do a lot of damage, but obviously they're pretty easy to avoid. Another thing you're seeing right now is he will randomly turn people into a goat, and basically the goat can do actually 2 things. You can eat sweet rolls, okay, and that will help you get back to your normal form. Eventually, what the sweet rolls will do is they will buff you and actually heal the group. And the buff basically increases the damage done to the Gates of Annihilation, okay? And what you can do as the goat is you can actually run into these gates right here and damage them much faster, which is really good on the hard mode, but it's not that important here. The other thing that you're going to see is these Chaos Gates. From time to time, he will actually spawn them, and enemies will escape from Oblivion into this battle. And it can be really annoying if certain enemies come, especially Watchers, because they can essentially, freeze you and hit you with their beam and actually kill you until they get interrupted. So if you see a Chaos Gate and you're a DPS player, you definitely want to take them down as soon as possible. You don't want to get, stunned by that Watcher and essentially, have to deal with that. But keep in mind, if you're turned into a goat, as a goat, you can charge the gate, and that will actually put a dot on it, and it will allow other players to do significantly more damage to that Chaos Gate. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. So keep that in mind. Before you eat all those sweet rolls to get back to your human form, if there's a Chaos Gate, go, run into that, and that will really help. Another thing that the boss will also do is poison everybody. And essentially, if you get poisoned by the boss, right there you saw those kind of green poisonous things, that essentially is not too much damage. You can heal through that with your healer pretty easily, but also from those poison bombs will spawn these kind of deathly frogs, and they don't do a lot of damage, but you definitely just want to get them off the board as quickly as possible. So I covered a lot of mechanics in there. I covered everything that he does in a pretty quick fashion. So if you need to listen to that again, feel free, because there's a lot going on there in that fight that I tried to cover pretty quickly. And again, I'll make a video for all the hard mode mechanics, but essentially they're actually the same. He just gets a bunch more health and he does significantly more damage. So let's get progressing on. We're going to go into the keep now, and we're going to take out a few more ads right here. And once we take them out, we'll actually be able to get our second set of runes to do the second secret boss, which is in this castle area. So once you've cleared them out, the first rune to activate is going to be right here in front of the throne. So you can see it right there on the ground floor. And then from there, we're going to go to this stairwell, and you can either go down or up. And down's the way you have to go to progress the level, or the dungeon. But on the bottom there is our second rune to activate. And the third one is on the top floor. So if you go all the way to the top and across the hall, you're going to find the third rune to activate back in this room back here. And just like the first one, once you activate all 3, you're going to have a beam of light that goes to take you to the portal of Goroseli, so we can go to the realm of Oblivion and fight our next secret boss. And this is just the same as the first secret boss. There's going to be a crystal in the middle that you need to activate. And once you activate that, we're going to blast through a couple waves of adds, and those adds, as you kill them, essentially are going to charge up that crystal until we can fight the second secret boss. Alright, so once you've killed enough of those Vaz, you're eventually going to spawn a Spider Daedra. Again, this is more like a mini boss, kind of like a harder add. This is not a tough fight. If you're in this veteran dungeon, this is going to pose you no threat. He will spawn some spiderlings throughout the fight that you have to deal with. They'll obviously have these kind of lightning attacks that go out, and they initially kind of go out from him, and then they kind of go in random directions. But if you have a good healer, again, honestly, you don't even really need to avoid them. They don't really do that much damage. As long as the tank kind of holds on to the heavy attacks, the Spider Daedra is going to give you no problem, and eventually you're going to kill it, and you're going to get your second crystal Animus, the Animus Anya. And this is going to give you increased health by 10%, and it's also going to give you a really cool ability that is very useful for the tank. But essentially, when you block, it's going to summon flames that damage enemies in front of you. And as long as you don't stop blocking, the damage will actually increase for each attack that you block. So it's pretty cool. So, you know, if you're a tank and you're really blocking a lot, that's really going to be helpful. So once you finish that secret boss, we're going to blast through some more adds. So we'll kind of let it play out here. Again, I'll keep this complete, but we'll make our way to the next second boss in this dungeon. So while we're kind of progressing on and blasting through the next set of adds, you know, one of the things I always do in these videos is try to touch a little bit on the lore about the dungeons. And unlike previous DLCs and some of the other dungeons in this game, there's really not much to this particular dungeon. In fact, they are considered kind of standalone dungeons that don't really have much story outside of this particular dungeon. With that said, Red Petal Bastion is essentially in northeast Glenumbra, inhabited by the Knights of the Silver Rose, and they were an order dedicated originally to try to rid the world of Daedric corruption. And what they did is they amassed a bunch of Daedric artifacts in this dungeon, and unfortunately now those artifacts have actually corrupted them. And that's kind of what you saw with the first fight, right? He was kind of corrupted by Sheograth and was just saying all kinds of crazy things, turning you into a goat and whatnot. So when you get here, the strongest warriors that wield these relics are now in the dungeon, and we essentially need to go there and help rid them of this, you know, corruption that they have that was initially actually set out to be, you know, done in a positive way to rid the anti-Daedra crusade. So let's get moving on, and we'll get into the next boss here in just a minute.
Does the heathen priest believe he can stand in the way of our divine purpose?
The powers of oblivion aren't to be worshipped. They are to be commanded.
Two shares as well as me.
Alright, so now we're at the second boss, the true boss in the game, which is Eliam Merick, and he's going to have two kind of adds or helpers with him, Liramindel and Ihudir. I'm not sure how you say that actually. Again, there is a challenge mode to this particular fight. You can activate that on the back wall, but in this video we're just going to cover the normal veteran difficulty, and we're going to go over all the mechanics, right? So this one's not too bad. Essentially, as you're fighting him, you're initially going to burn him down to 80%. At that point, he's going to have his archer, or Liramindel, again, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, she will join the fight. Now, in theory, you know, this is kind of our first, you know, go at this. We were kind of trying to figure everything out. You can actually ignore the adds completely and just burn down Eliam if you have enough DPS, okay? But let's talk about some of the things that he does. One, you can see all these kind of lightning little small AoEs that are around the map. Those are going to be completely random. Just don't stand in those, and that should be okay. Another thing that you'll do that you just saw there is called blowback, and he's going to stand there and he's going to raise his knee and he's going to knock back anybody that's in front of him, even the tank, even if you're blocking. You need to block it or it will do a significant amount of damage, but if you block it, the damage will be mitigated and it will just kind of blow you back. He also does kind of a, you know, a spray attack that leaves a conical direction of those, you know, little targets that are moving across the ground. Again, those aren't going to hit you. They're not going to give you any status effects, but it will do a little bit of damage. You can easily avoid those. You can see the archer, Liramindel, she'll do a few things that are basically like most archer attacks. She's not going to have a lot of, you know, damage that she's going to output, but she can essentially do an arrow spray, which is a conical attack of arrows. She can also shoot arrows up into the air, and those will come down and leave little traps on the ground. if you stand on those traps, they can actually kind of stun you for a second, but again, they're easily avoidable. The attack that you saw him just do there is essentially where he will jump at a player that's furthest away from him. It's called Stone Splitter Plunge. The way you can avoid that is by keeping all the players relatively close to the final boss. But if someone is far away, he may jump at that person and knock them backward. It's not going to do a lot of damage, but again, it's kind of annoying. It will knock you back, but it's not really anything too concerning. So again, here you're seeing the blowback. So he kind of launches back, and even if the tank's blocking, that will not launch you back slightly. The other thing that he'll do is what's called Rock Slide Rush. He'll also just kind of charge up and attack and ram the tank. You can block this, or you can actually roll dodge it and get completely out of the way. So we'll talk about the other thing that he brings in at 30%, which is, well, at 50% actually, Ihudir. And Ihudir is a dual-wielding swordsman. He's not too challenging. Again, you can technically just ignore him if you want to, but his heavy attack can certainly cause significant damage. He will do a charged attack that does a lot of damage, but you can avoid that pretty easily, or you could interrupt him. At 30%, even if you have killed Liramindel and Ihudir, at 30%, he will spawn them back into the fight together. So at that point, I recommend just avoiding them and keeping your focus on Eliam and just kind of DPSing him down, getting him to execute and finishing off the fight. If you kind of focus on them, it just kind of drags it out a little bit. But overall, this fight is pretty easy. I don't think you're going to have too much difficulty with it. And the mechanics, you know, I've gone over everything, right? I touched on everything. Again, it happening real time. But so if there's anything else that you're kind of confused about, just kind of rewatch this section. But overall, it's really not too challenging. So let's get moving on. We're going to blast through a couple more ads. And eventually the next thing we're going to be at is our third runes that we need to activate in order to get to the third and final secret boss.
Dispelling the ward did nothing to reduce those dreadful emanations. In fact, it only made them worse. Proceed with caution. Sora, look at all of these relics. They're the source of the troubled energies up there. They're twisting more than the nuts. I need to banish miasma before it gets any worse. Corruption will continue to well up here until it floods out from these ruins. I must cast it out.
All right, so once you've cleared out, you know, all the ads in this room, and he, you know, kind of cures all the Daedric runes, now we can find the runes that we need to activate in order to go to the third boss. The first one is going to be right, you know, that's the entrance where you come into the room, to the left where you come in. And then on the north side of the room, you're going to find one up the stairs behind this stone pillar. And then if you go across from that, on the south side, you're going to find your third and final rune. And again, all the players need to stand on all those runes at the same time. There's 3 of them, and once it activates, and those beams of light are going to direct you to our portal so we can go back into Goroseli and the Oblivion Domain, and we're going to have our third and final, you know, area of secret boss so we can get the Crystal Animus Nagaya. Now, when you're here, it's the same as all the previous 2. You're going to have to activate this crystal in the middle here, and after you fight several ads, eventually Grievous Twilight is going to spawn into the fight. So now you can see what we've cleared up several of the ads. The crystal has now charged, and Grievous Twilight enters the fight against some, you know, enemies of various Oblivion creatures. Again, this is not too bad. He doesn't really have any attacks that you really need to worry about. He'll kind of spawn these AoEs that are these large kind of explosions that come out of the sky that you just saw there. He'll also bring in some Oblivion creatures during the fight. You know, even if you're in these AoEs, they're not going to hurt you that bad, you know, especially if you have a healer. This is not a fight. You see, I'm standing in it right there. I don't really take much damage at all. So again, like, if you've made it this far in the dungeon, this guy's not going to give you any problem. He's basically like a glorified ad. So go ahead and clean him up, and you're going to acquire the Crystal Animus Nagaya Shard. And this one's probably the best one because it's going to increase your weapon and spell critical increase by 10%, which is pretty awesome. And also, when you heavy attack a target, it's going to put an explosive that's going to detonate after 5 seconds. Any detonation will consume all the explosives on the target and deal extra damage. So you can have multiple people heavy attack and put a bunch of explosions, and as soon as the first one explodes, they'll all explode. So that's pretty cool. You know, you're not going to be heavy attacking that much if you're, you know, kind of using a light kind of, you know, weave and all of that. But nonetheless, if you want to try it out, you can certainly do it. It's pretty cool. But what the real bonus is that weapon and critical spell increase.
Stand firm against these demons!
I am slightly impressed by the size of this collection. I never knew mortals had it in them. Didn't take us far to lightly. Drain fell powers to the rim of all holes. This horde will need to be divided and scattered, or this will all go. I couldn't take them on your hands. I wouldn't trust anyone, mortal or Daedra, with this much power. It seems the only path is down. I feel a surge in the Daedric power. It's gathering. It's coming from behind that door.
Alright, so we've made it to the final boss in this dungeon. Again, this is not bad as a veteran dungeon. It's, you know, kind of easy, especially compared to the other dungeon in this DLC. But eventually you're going to find your way to the final boss, Prior Thierric Sarazen. So let's go ahead and talk about all the attacks he does. One right there, you see him stomp. Okay, that's a Highness high kick, and that will essentially stun someone in front of it. You can block or roll dodge it, but immediately after he does that, he'll always do a conical slice attack that you saw right there, and that will do a lot of damage. But as long as your tank is facing him and taking that, keep him facing away from everybody else, it shouldn't really cause you a problem. The other thing that he'll do is he'll teleport and create this large AoE around him, which you can see right there. It's also going to put some AoEs around the board as well. Again, it's not going to cause too much damage to you as long as you're not just standing in it and staying in it. So just go ahead and get out of the way, and it won't give you too much problem. Alright, so one of the other things he'll do, and he'll teleport before he does this, you'll see it right here, and he'll start charging up an attack. Okay, and one player is going to have a little AoE indicator below them. You have to interrupt that attack, or an opalescent impale will come out of the ground and kill that player that's marked. You'll actually see it later in the fight because I think I get killed by it. But also, he'll spawn some, kind of, opalescent impales that aren't as dangerous, and those are going to be indicated by large, AoEs that are spawning under your feet, and you can easily move out of those. But the player that's caught by the small AoE when he's charging has to be interrupted, or that will kill you. So let's talk about some of the adds that he brings in as well. He's going to bring into the fight a couple of those Realm Shapers. You do need to kill those as quickly as possible because they can heal the boss. So now you see this little indicator underneath me. That's the opalescent impale. Okay, so the boss was charging up and everyone was a little distracted, right? It's a little sloppy. We're kind of first into this dungeon a little bit, but what happened was he charged up and no one interrupted him. So I had an unavoidable opalescent impale that killed me. You can see the other impales that come up with the larger AoEs don't do enough damage to kill you. Okay, so keep that in mind. So the other adds that he's going to bring in, as we're laying here dead for a second, he's going to have some relic fiends. He's also going to spawn what's called the duplicate wall, which are transparent duplicates of himself, and they essentially kind of march around the room with kind of basically a wall in front of them. You can see there to the right. Now, the duplicate wall itself, while it does that rockside rush attack kind of going across the room, you can see it right there, just knocked me down. It doesn't cause a lot of damage though. Obviously avoid that on, you know, veteran difficulty if you can, but it's not one of those walls that if it touches you, an instant death. So it's not too bad. Just kind of get out of the way, keep your indicators up. Now, as we're playing, we weren't really sure if these relic fiends were anything important, but it turns out they're not really. You do just want to kind of add control, kind of control your environment, because you basically just don't want a ton of them on the board dealing out damage. But as long as you kind of have crowd control mindset and you take them out here and there, here and there when you have the opportunity, then they're not really going to cause you too much of a problem. Okay, so progressing it on a little bit. So again, you want to avoid these spikes. So remember, those aren't the actual opalescent impale. That's going to be targeting one enemy. So it's not too bad. The other thing that's going to happen when he gets around 30%, 35%, is he's going to summon another type of his duplicate transparents into the fight. Just like the wall duplicates, you can't actually kill them. You can almost barely see them. They're red, but essentially they're going to be constantly doing the Blade Tempest attack, which is essentially a 360 AoE whirling attack that's constantly moving around the room. So luckily they are large, and you just have to stay out of that. So again, there he was charging for that opalescent again, so you have to interrupt that. But anyway, as long as you stay out of those duplicates Tempest attack, and you should be able to execute him down pretty quickly once you get to this phase of the fight. And that's going to wrap it up. It's, not too bad of a dungeon. This dungeon's really, kind of easy, to be honest, for a veteran dungeon, but it is pretty cool. Red Petal Bastion has some pretty cool scenery. I thought it had some pretty cool mechanics, but the overall difficulty just on normal veteran difficulty is not too bad. It ramps up a lot on the hard modes of each boss, and again, we'll make a video for that and try to kind of go over all the hard modes mechanics in the fight. So after that, you finish the dungeon. So let's take a look at the monster helm that you get. All right, so this monster set, the first, having one, the shoulder or the head, is going to give you weapon damage or spell damage. And then when you have both pieces, dealing direct damage with an area of effect ability creates a shadowy whirlwind below your enemy for 7 seconds, which is essentially that Blade Tempest, right? And does damage. So it's a pretty cool set, pretty cool DPS set. We'll see how it kind of plays out. But overall, this dungeon's not too bad. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. As always, if you like my stuff, feel free to like and subscribe. And hopefully, I'll see you in some Elder Scrolls. Maybe we'll run into each other playing some dungeons. Peace.